I want to start by painting a really specific picture for you. And if you run a service business, this is probably going to feel, well, a little too familiar.
Oh, I bet it will.
Right. So you start out with this skill. You're an incredibly talented technician or, an amazing practitioner, like arguably the absolute best in your local market at whatever it is you do.
Yeah, you're the go-to person.
Exactly. And because you're that good, word of mouth just spreads like crazy. The phone starts ringing. So you hire an assistant and then maybe a crew.
You add a few trucks.
Yeah, exactly. You add trucks to the fleet, maybe even open a second location. And on paper, it looks like this ultimate success story.
Right, the dream.
But then you hit this invisible, brutal plateau. You look around at this company built from the ground up and you realize something really terrifying.
It only works if you're there.
Yes. It only functions when you are physically standing over it. Every single decision, every minor hiccup, it all has to filter directly through you. And so you're working harder than you ever have in your life. Your revenue is climbing, but your actual take-home profit, totally flat.
It really is the ultimate paradox of being great at your craft.
Yeah.
I mean, we see this pattern constantly,
Yeah, you see it a lot.
all the time, especially when we look at businesses sitting in that specific revenue band. Usually somewhere between $500,000 and $5 million.
Okay, yeah.
The very skills that allowed you to build the business in the first place, that
Yeah.
relentless attention to detail, the insistence on doing things right, those are the exact same traits that end up holding the business back later on.
Because you literally become the ceiling.
Exactly. The owner becomes the ceiling of their own company.
It's wild to think about. And, looking at all the field notes and the data we've pulled together for you on this, what really strikes me is just the universal nature of the bad advice these owners get.
Oh, it's terrible.
It really is. Like
Yeah.
when you hit that wall of exhaustion and revenue is up, but profit is flat, every consultant out there gives you the exact same prescription.
Let me guess. Get more leads.
Yes. Get more leads, spend more on marketing, make the phone ring. But when you look at the actual mechanics of these businesses, that advice is practically toxic.
It's the worst thing you could do.
Right. I was thinking about it like this. Trying to solve a profit problem in a plateaued service business with more marketing, it's like putting a massive supercharged engine into a car with a blown transmission.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right, like you press the gas, you generate this massive surge of power up front. The engine is just screaming, but it's just destroying the gears.
Yeah, it never actually reaches the wheels.
Exactly. The car doesn't move forward. It just shakes itself apart.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanical failure that's happening inside these companies. Because, pumping more money in the front door works to get the phone ringing.
Nobody argues that.
Right, nobody disputes it. If you spend 50 grand on ads, you will get leads. But the critical failure is that nobody ever stops to ask what happens to that capital once it gets inside the business.
Which is the whole point.
Exactly. The gap between where your service business is right now and where you want it to be, that space between grinding yourself to dust and actually having a self-sustaining asset, it's not a marketing gap.
No.
It's an operations gap. You don't need more raw power. You need to fix the transmission so the power you already have actually translates into forward momentum.
Which opens up a completely different conversation, really. Because if the transmission is blown, who actually fixes it?
Well, it's certainly not the marketing agency.
Oh, right, they only sell engines. You need someone who knows how to get under the hood, pull the gears apart, and rebuild the whole workflow.
And that requires a very specific type of leader. For a long time, the options were just terrible for a business doing, say, $2 or $3 million a year.
Because they can't afford a huge corporate salary.
Exactly. You couldn't afford to go out and hire a full-time corporate chief operating officer for $200,000 a year, plus equity, plus benefits.
That would just bankrupt a small service business.
Instantly. But what's changing the landscape for companies in this tier is the integration of a fractional COO.
Okay, a fractional chief operating officer. Let's break down what that actually means in the context of a small, local service business. Because the word fractional, I feel like it gets thrown around a lot.
It does. Think of it as accessing elite operational leadership on a strictly part-time, highly targeted basis.
Okay.
We're usually talking about a senior operations expert who works inside your business for maybe 10 to 20 hours a month.
And what's the cost on something like that?
It usually ranges between $2,000 and $7,000, depending on the scope of the work. But their entire mandate is to step into the chaos, assess the workflows, fix the broken systems, and aggressively improve the profit margins.
So they're building a machine.
Exactly. Building a machine that runs the business as well as you run the actual service work.
Let me push back on that for a second, though. Or at least, play devil's advocate. Because when a business owner hears, I need someone to help me run my business better, their first thought is usually to go hire a business coach.
Right.
I mean, there's a massive industry built around coaching overwhelmed entrepreneurs. How is bringing in a fractional COO any different from just hiring a really good executive coach?
The difference is structural, and it is massive. Like, let's look at the actual engagement model. A business coach stands on the sidelines.
Okay.
Their primary focus is usually your psychology. They talk to you about your mindset, overcoming limiting beliefs, setting visionary goals.
Holding you accountable.
Right, holding you accountable to your own promises. And that has real value, especially in the early days.
For sure.
But a fractional COO is not on the sidelines. They were on the field with you. They're wearing cleats, and their hands are covered in the dirt of your actual numbers.
They're actually doing the work.
Yes. They aren't asking you to visualize success. They're actively rewriting your standard operating procedures. They're analyzing your profit and loss statements line by line.
Oh, wow.
They're restructuring your pricing tiers, implementing tracking software. They're not just telling you to run faster or play harder. They are redesigning the entire playbook so you don't have to rely on sheer hustle anymore.
So it's the difference between cheering from the sidelines and actually calling the plays on the field.
Exactly.
I see that. And, it ties directly into a framework you brought up earlier that genuinely blew my mind when I first heard it.
Oh, the ICU nursing thing.
Yes. You look at business operations through the lens of intensive care and surgical nursing. I think that's fascinating.
It's honestly the most accurate parallel I've ever found. Before I transitioned into business operations, I spent 26 years as a nurse in the ICU and surgical units.
That is wild.
It's intense. And in an intensive care environment, the stakes are absolute. There's a golden rule. A nurse never, ever walks into a patient's room and just starts pushing medications because they have a hunch about what's wrong.
You can't just guess.
You never act without looking at the monitors. You assess first. You check the blood pressure, the oxygen saturation, the heart rate.
Right.
You see exactly what the numbers are telling you in real time. And just as importantly, you look for what the numbers are hiding.
So diagnosis before prescription.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Every single time. If you violate that rule in the ICU, people die.
Wow.
And if you violate that rule in business, companies fail. Good business operations require the exact same clinical discipline.
Which makes perfect sense.
Right. If you don't methodically diagnose the business first, if you just start throwing marketing dollars at a revenue plateau or buying random project management software because you saw an ad for it, you're essentially pushing heavy medications completely blind.
Just guessing and hoping it works.
Exactly. A fractional COO comes in and checks the vital signs of your business to find exactly where the profit is bleeding out before they ever suggest a single solution.
Okay, so diagnosing the business sounds perfectly logical in theory. But, theory doesn't make payroll. I want to know what those vitals actually look like in the grit of a real day-to-day service business.
Okay, let's get into it.
If a fractional COO walks into a chaotic, plateaued company, where exactly do they look to find that $50,000 or $150,000 in hidden profit?
We look at specific profit levers. There are generally 7 major levers in any service business. But if we want to see immediate dramatic impact, we usually focus on 3 of the most critical ones first.
Okay, what's lever number 1?
The first lever is conversion. And I'll give you a real-world scenario that illustrates exactly how this works. Let's look at a trades business, say a residential electrical contractor doing about $1.5 million in annual revenue.
Solid numbers.
On paper, yeah. The owner is putting in 60-hour weeks. The vans are always out. The phone is constantly ringing. From the outside, the community views this guy as wildly successful.
But the bank account tells a very different story, right? He's probably pulling in the exact same personal income he was making when the business was half the size.
Precisely. His take-home pay had been totally stagnant for 3 years. And his immediate instinct, because it's the only lever most owners know how to pull, was to spend an extra $5,000 a month on local advertising.
Just to get more leads.
Right. He figured if he just increased the volume of calls, the math would eventually work out in his favor.
Just brute force it.
Exactly. But a fractional COO steps in, checks the vitals, and stops that ad spend immediately.
Wait, really? Just cuts it off?
Yep. Because when you actually dig into the data, you find that his conversion rate on incoming calls The percentage of people who call and actually book a paid job was sitting at 35%.
Oh, wow. Is that bad for that industry?
For a mature, established trades business in his market, that number should have been closer to 55 or 60%.
Stop right there, because that is the blown transmission in real life. The money wasn't missing at the front door. The community wanted to hire him. The marketing was actually working. The leads were there, but they were vanishing in the middle of the process. They were just slipping through the cracks of his own operation.
That's exactly it. People were interested. They had a problem. They were literally reaching out to give him their money, and then they were just gone.
So why? What was happening?
Because the operations were fundamentally broken. When the COO diagnosed the workflow, they found that the person answering the phones was acting like a defensive gatekeeper instead of a welcoming sales professional.
Oh, yeah.
They were stressed, juggling dispatch and customer service. If they couldn't answer the phone, the voicemail was full.
Oh, that's the worst.
And if a web lead came in, it took an average of 2 days for someone to call them back.
2 days. By that time, the customer has already hired a competitor.
Exactly. So the prescription wasn't a new, expensive ad campaign.
Right. How does the COO actually fix that on the field?
It was building a tightly controlled, easily repeatable system. The COO implemented a standardized intake script, so every caller was greeted the exact same way.
Okay.
They instituted a mandatory 5-minute callback rule for all digital leads. They set up automated text reminders for appointments so the technicians weren't showing up to empty houses.
And how much did all that cost?
It cost absolutely nothing in external marketing dollars.
Wow.
By simply capturing the demand that was already there, the business turned around entirely within 90 days. The conversion rate climbed to 58%.
That's huge.
Top-line revenue surged, and because there were no additional marketing costs, all of that extra margin dropped straight to the bottom line. That is what it means to pull the conversion lever.
That is just incredible. And it makes complete sense for a trades business where it's very transactional and lead-driven.
Sure.
But I want to explore how this translates into other industries. How does this clinical operations approach apply outside of the trades, like in professional services or healthcare?
It translates perfectly. Which brings us to the second critical lever, systems and operations.
Okay.
This specific pattern shows up everywhere, from law firms to accounting agencies. But let's look at a highly successful private healthcare practice.
Okay, lay it out.
We're talking about a clinic with stellar community reviews, a completely full schedule, and a waiting list for new patients.
Sounds like a gold mine.
It sounds like it, right? But here is the critical vital sign. The owner of the practice was personally handling 70% of the patient care herself.
Oh, I have to pause you right there. Because when I look at a scenario like that, my first thought is, that is not actually a business.
No, it's not.
That is just an incredibly demanding, high-paying job with your own name on the door. You haven't built an enterprise. You've built a prison where you're the star inmate.
That is the exact harsh reality she was facing. Every single time she tried to take a vacation or just step back to manage the administrative side of the clinic, the revenue immediately plummeted.
Because the patients only wanted to see her.
Exactly. They'd cancel or reschedule. The entire organization had no structural backbone without her physical presence in the treatment room. If she got sick, the business stopped generating cash.
So how does an outside operations leader solve that? Because that feels like a deeply personal problem.
Right.
The clients are attached to the owner's specific personality and expertise. You can't just, hire a random receptionist and expect the problem to disappear.
You're entirely right. And a fractional COO doesn't solve that by just blindly hiring more staff or telling the owner to simply delegate more.
Right, because delegation without structure is just abdication.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
Hmm.
The solution required surgical intervention into the actual patient journey.
Okay.
The COO came in and mapped out every single touch point a patient experienced, from the moment they walked in the door to the follow-up care.
Diagnosing first.
Always. They analyzed what the owner was actually doing in the room, and they discovered she was spending 30% of her time doing basic intake assessments and routine modalities that a lower-level, fully capable staff member could easily handle.
Oh, man. So she was basically overqualified for her own daily routine.
Exactly. She was doing work way below her pay grade, so the COO built clinical pathways.
What does that mean, practically?
They created repeatable, documented processes that allowed the existing team to deliver the exact same quality of care independently. They restructured the schedule so the owner only handled complex evaluations and high-level strategy.
So she's only doing the stuff only she can do.
Precisely. While the team executed the standard care protocols based on her exact specifications. And they even trained the front desk on how to position the associate staff as an extension of the owner's expertise.
Ah, managing the patient's expectations before they ever reach the back room.
Exactly.
It sounds like they basically extracted the owner's genius out of her head and turned it into an operating manual for the clinic.
That is the core of systemization. And
Yeah.
the result was just transformative. Within 4 months of implementing these new pathways, the owner was able to step back and reduce her clinical hours to 3 days a week.
That's incredible.
And because the team was operating at a higher capacity under the new systems, the overall revenue of the clinic held completely steady.
Yeah.
She got 2 days of her life back every single week without sacrificing a dollar of income.
That is the dream, right? Getting your time back while protecting the cash flow. Okay, so we've covered conversion and we've covered systems. What's the third major lever?
The third lever is the most common issue we see, and honestly, it is the one owners are most terrified to touch.
Oh, let me guess.
Pricing.
Pricing.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, pricing is so deeply psychological.
It really is.
Because it's one thing to draw up a spreadsheet and say, okay, we need a 10% increase. It is a completely different reality when you have to look a local customer in the eye, someone you might know by name, someone who gave you a shot when you were just starting out, and tell them your rates are going up.
Yeah.
It feels like a personal betrayal.
It feels incredibly personal, and that emotional weight is exactly why most service business owners set their prices years ago and refuse to ever touch them again.
Just pure fear.
Yeah, they picked a number when they were much smaller, usually when they were desperate for cash flow or when the local competition felt much bigger than it actually was. They anchored themselves to a price point based on fear, and over the years, that completely arbitrary number just became a habit.
But a habit is not a financial strategy.
No, it is a slow path to bankruptcy. Keeping a price just because it feels familiar is the most dangerous game you can play in a service business.
Because everything else goes up.
Exactly. The reality is, your own operational costs are not stagnant. They are going up every single quarter. Your materials cost more. Your software subscriptions creep up. Your insurance premiums rise.
You have to pay your labor more just to keep them.
Right, just to keep them from jumping ship to a competitor. But because these costs creep up by pennies and single percentages, the margin shrinks so slowly that the owner manages to ignore it.
Like boiling a frog.
Precisely. Until one day they wake up, look at their year-end statements, and realize they're working twice as many hours, managing twice as many headaches to make the exact same net profit they were making 5 years ago.
Man, that's rough. So how does the fractional COO break that cycle? How do they force an owner to push through that emotional barrier?
By removing the emotion entirely and replacing it with undeniable math.
Okay, I like that.
A fractional COO does a deep dive margin analysis on every single service line the business offers. Often, owners discover that their most popular service, the thing they spend 40% of their time doing, is actually a loss leader.
Oh, wow.
They're literally paying for the privilege of serving those clients. So the COO restructures the pricing based purely on the actual cost of delivery plus the targeted profit margin.
And what about the clients? How do they handle that?
They build the communication templates to explain the increase to legacy clients professionally. They script the team on how to sell the new value. It shifts pricing from a fearful guess to a mathematical certainty.
This is a massive paradigm shift. I mean, we're talking about moving from flying by the seat of your pants to flying by instruments.
That's exactly it.
So if we look at the landscape of our listeners, how does an owner actually know when their business is ready for this level of intervention? Like, what are the quiet warning signs that just scream, you have an operations gap?
The symptoms are usually subtle until they are catastrophic, but they're incredibly costly if you know what to look for. The most obvious one is the central theme we've been discussing. You review your quarterly numbers, top-line revenue has hit a record high, but when you look at the operating account, the cash just isn't there.
You're busy, but you're not wealthy.
Exactly, the illusion of momentum. Another massive red flag is observing what happens to your organization when a key employee resigns or takes a 2-week vacation.
Let me guess. Absolute, unmitigated chaos.
Total systemic failure.
Yeah.
Because everything about how that person executed their job, the vendor contacts, the specific quirks of the software, the history with key clients, was stored entirely in their head.
None of it was on paper?
None of it existed on paper. None of it lived in a central operating system. When they walked out the door, the intellectual property of the business walked out with them.
Which owners probably mistake for a hiring problem, right?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
They think, I just need to find better people. But it is not a personnel problem. It is a massive systems failure. You cannot scale a business if every role is a mystery box.
What about the owner's personal day-to-day experience? Are there symptoms in how they interact with their own team?
Oh, this is perhaps the most telling diagnostic of all. Look at your text messages in your inbox. If your team is constantly interrupting you to ask questions they should already know the answers to, or seeking permission for incredibly minor decisions, that is a glaring warning sign.
Because they can't think for themselves.
Well, here's the hard truth. It is not because your team is incompetent or incapable of critical thought. It is because you, the owner, have designed an environment where you hold the exclusive key to how things get done.
Oh, that stings.
It does. You've trained them that every decision must be validated by you. You have inadvertently engineered yourself to be the primary bottleneck of your own company's growth.
Because it feeds the ego to feel indispensable, right up until the moment it burns you out.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say a business owner hears this. They look at their chaotic week, recognize every single symptom, and decide they need to bring in a fractional COO. What are the blind spots? What are the risks of bringing in an outside operations leader? And, what happens if you hire the wrong person?
The risks are very real, and hiring the wrong operational leader can actually accelerate the damage.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The biggest danger by far is hiring someone who fundamentally does not understand the gritty reality of your specific world.
What do you mean by that?
Well, right now, a vast majority of the content online regarding fractional COOs is generated by and for the tech startup ecosystem.
Okay.
If you run a local service business, a plumbing company, a landscaping firm, a roofing contractor, and you hire an operations person whose entire resume consists of scaling Silicon Valley software companies, it will be an absolute unmitigated disaster.
Oh man, I can literally picture this.
Yeah.
You have a guy in a Patagonia vest walking into a dirty HVAC dispatch office trying to talk to mechanics about agile workflows and 2-week scrums and optimizing the burn rate.
It is exactly that ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it happens more often than you would think.
That's hilarious, but also terrible.
It's awful. They will try to force your blue-collar, highly unpredictable service business into rigid academic frameworks that make absolutely no sense on the ground.
Right.
They'll be obsessing over digital collaboration tools while you're just trying to figure out why your best lead technician quit on a Tuesday morning and left the truck keys in the ignition.
The diagnostic approach has to match the actual patient.
Exactly. You need an operations leader who understands the visceral realities of a service, business managing fleets, dealing with weather delays, handling blue-collar labor dynamics, and navigating local supply chains.
Okay, so the medicine has to cure this specific disease. Are there any other traps owners fall into when bringing someone in?
Yes, the danger of the yes man. This is a profound risk.
Okay.
When you hire an operations leader, you are not hiring an assistant. You are hiring a peer to challenge you. The huge risk is bringing someone in who simply nods along and tells you whatever you want to hear to protect their retainer.
Right, they just want to keep getting paid.
Exactly. A genuine, high-level fractional COO is going to make you uncomfortable. They are going to look at the wreckage of your processes and point out the problems that you personally created as the owner.
They're going to hold up a mirror.
They will tell you that your favorite client is actually bankrupting you, or that your management style is driving away good talent. It requires a tremendous amount of humility from the owner to hear that.
Yeah, that takes thick skin.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hire someone who just agrees with all your existing assumptions, you will pay them thousands of dollars for 6 months to change absolutely nothing.
That makes total sense. And, this entire conversation really reshapes the end goal for me.
How so?
Well, we've talked extensively about how getting your operations diagnosed and systematized gives you your margins back and gives you your weekends back. It stops the bleeding.
Right.
But I want to pull the camera way back and look at the absolute long-term end game for the listener, because getting your time back is just step one.
Sure.
Consider the ultimate finish line of entrepreneurship: eventually exiting or selling the business.
Yes.
If your company only functions on the sheer force of your memory, your personal grit, and your constant, exhausting supervision, you do not actually possess an asset you can sell to an investor.
Not at all.
You just own a highly stressful, incredibly demanding job that someone else would have to buy and then perform. And the market reality is nobody with capital wants to buy a job.
Never. They want to buy a return on investment.
Exactly. But a business that is built on resilient, repeatable systems. A company that generates a predictable, high-margin profit, whether you are sitting in the corner office or sitting on a beach 2,000 miles away.
That changes everything.
That is a highly valuable, highly liquid, sellable asset. It transforms your business from a daily grind into an engine of generational wealth.
Yeah.
It literally changes the entire trajectory of your life.
That is the ultimate operational shift, moving from a fragile business that relies entirely on you to a robust business that works tirelessly for you.
Spot on.
And, if anything we've unpacked today regarding these operational plateaus hits home for you, I want to invite you into a unique collaborative research project.
Oh, awesome. Tell them about it.
Right now, Ryan Hurst is actively interviewing service business owners for the upcoming second edition of his book on profit strategies for small businesses.
Which is going to be great.
It really is. So whether you're currently experiencing these exact bottlenecks in your own company and want to talk through the mechanics of them, or if you've already built these systems and just want to share your hard-won experiences, I highly encourage you to reach out and participate.
How do they get in touch?
You can call or text Ryan directly at 517-955-2154.
And I want to be completely explicit about this with you. There is zero pitch here. There's no hidden pressure, no aggressive sales funnel you're getting dropped into.
Not at all.
It is genuinely just a conversation between people who care deeply about getting the mechanics right for service businesses. Again, you can reach him directly at 517-955-2154.
Definitely reach out.
Because when you strip away all the noise, the flashy advice, and the vanity metrics, you have to face the mechanical truth of your company. You can build the biggest, most powerful, most aggressive marketing engine in your entire industry.
Yep.
But if you do not have the discipline to stop, look under the hood, and fix the transmission, all that incredible power you are generating is never going to reach the wheels. The question isn't whether you have enough horsepower to win.
It's whether your business is actually built to handle the speed.
Exactly. Or if you're just vibrating in place, waiting for the gears to finally snap.